I never imagined that the man I married, someone I trusted with my heart and my life, was only pretending to love me. For years, I believed we shared a bond built on trust and respect. But behind closed doors, he was weaving a web of lies. All to get his hands on my family's fortune. There were moments when things didn't add up. A secret phone call, strange late nights, and whispers behind my back. I tried to convince myself it was just paranoia. But deep down, I knew something was terribly wrong. Then came the day I uncovered the truth. He was never truly mine. Every smile, every word of affection was a carefully crafted act. And when I confronted him, the betrayal cut deeper than I ever thought possible. If you've ever wondered how far someone can go to deceive the person they claim to love, this story will shock you. It's about betrayal, heartbreak, and the fight to reclaim not just money, but dignity. Before we dive into this painful journey, I want to invite you to subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss any of the stories that reveal hidden truths and inspire strength, especially when life feels the hardest. Have you ever felt betrayed by someone you love the most? What would you do if your whole world was built on lies? Stay with me, because this story is one you won't forget. PHGN1. Kwok Han Nan Trong MD Hey CM Bye Bye. Kung 800T. I always thought my marriage was a dream come true. At 58, I believed I had found my forever partner. Someone who truly cared for me, who cherished every moment we spent together. The way he looked at me, the gentle touch, even the quiet evenings just sitting side by side felt like blessings I never dared hope for. But beneath the surface of that perfect life, shadows were quietly growing. It started with small things. An unanswered call here, a secretive text message there. At first I told myself, maybe he's just busy or stressed with work, but the feeling didn't fade. There was a distance, a coldness I couldn't explain. One evening, I found myself sitting alone in our cozy living room. The soft glow of the fireplace warmed the room, but my heart was heavy. I remembered how just a few years ago we had laughed together here, planning trips and dreaming about our future. Then, without warning, a suspicious email popped up on his phone. A message from a stranger, laced with urgency and secrecy. My hands trembled as I tried to make sense of the words. I wanted to believe it was innocent, a misunderstanding. But deep down, the truth whispered something darker. I decided to follow my instincts. The next day, I tried to keep my composure, but every glance he threw my way felt like a lie. At dinner, I asked casually, "Is everything okay with work? You seem distracted." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Just the usual stress," he said. But I knew better. Days passed, and my heart ached with the weight of suspicion. I confided in my best friend Karen. She listened carefully and said something that hit me hard. "If you keep ignoring your gut, you're just letting him win." That night, I sat on the porch watching the stars. I wondered how I could have missed the signs, how a man I trusted so deeply could hide such secrets. And yet, a part of me was terrified of what I might uncover. Its strange betrayal feels like a slow poison. At first, it's almost invisible. Then suddenly it spreads everywhere. But I wasn't ready to give up. I was determined to find out the truth, no matter how painful it would be. And just when I thought things couldn't get more confusing, a funny little incident happened. I accidentally walked in on him talking to himself in the kitchen, practicing what I later realized was a fake apology. I chuckled nervously, the absurdity of it giving me a moment's relief. "Well, at least he's getting the lines right," I whispered to myself, tears threatening to fall again. This was just the beginning. I always believed that love at its purest would be simple. I was 57 when I met Mark, a charming man with a smile that could light up any room and a laugh that felt like home. From the moment we met, I felt lucky, like fate finally decided to give me a second chance at happiness. Our wedding was small but beautiful. Friends and family gathered around, sharing tears and laughter. At that moment, standing hand in hand with Mark, I truly believed I was beginning the rest of my life safe, loved and respected. For a while, things seemed perfect. Mark was attentive, bringing me coffee in bed on lazy Sunday mornings, holding my hand during long walks and whispering promises that felt sincere. I thought, maybe, just maybe, happiness had finally found me. But life, as I would soon learn, doesn't always follow the stories we imagine. The first sign was subtle. An unanswered phone call that went straight to voicemail. Then a text message left unread for hours. At first I shrugged it off. "He's probably just busy," I told myself. But the unease settled deeper with each passing day. One evening, I came home earlier than usual, hoping to surprise him with dinner. Instead, I found the house strangely quiet. In the living room, his phone was buzzing with messages, but the screen was turned down. Curiosity pulled me closer. I glanced at the screen and froze. The message was from someone named Sarah, the tone urgent, the words secretive. My heart pounded. Why hadn't he told me about this Sarah? Was she a coworker, a friend, or something else? I tried to calm myself. Maybe it was innocent. But as I walked to the kitchen, I caught a glimpse of Mark's expression. Guilty, almost nervous. That was the moment a crack appeared in the perfect picture I'd painted. Still, I was hesitant to confront him. Years of trust don't vanish overnight. I needed proof, a reason, something solid. But the doubt was already eating away at me. Twisting every smile, every touch into a question, my best friend Karen noticed the change in me. "You look tired, like your soul's carrying a heavy weight," she said gently over coffee one afternoon. I wanted to brush it off, but the tears came anyway. How could I explain that I was scared? Scared that the man I loved was living. A lie. Karen's words stayed with me. Listen to your heart, but trust your instincts too. The next few days felt like walking on thin ice. I watched Mark more closely. How he hid his phone when I entered the room, the sudden late nights, at work, and the secretive smiles he exchanged with people I didn't know. Each little thing piled on the fear, the betrayal, and then life threw in a cruel twist that I never expected. One night, I came down to the kitchen for a glass of water and found Mark there, pacing nervously and talking to himself in a voice so fake it was almost comical. "I love you, honey." "I'm sorry," he repeated over and over. I couldn't help but chuckle softly. The sight of him practicing a fake apology was absurd, almost like a scene from a bad movie. For a brief moment, the heaviness in my chest lifted. Sometimes when life feels unbearable, laughter is the only medicine. But when I looked at him, my heart broke all over again. That moment of levity couldn't hide the growing truth. Mark's love was a performance, a carefully rehearsed act designed to deceive. I thought about all the plans we made, the dreams we shared, and wondered how much of it was real. How could someone pretend to love you for so long? As the days passed, my mind raced with questions and fears. Was it the money, the house, the life I'd worked so hard to build? Or was it something even darker, a game of power and control? I felt lost in a sea of doubt, my own feelings betraying me. But amidst the confusion, a flicker of determination grew inside me. If Mark was playing a part, then I was ready to find out the truth, no matter how painful it would be. And so, my journey began, a journey through heartbreak, deception, and the fight to reclaim my life. After those first uneasy moments, I promised myself I wouldn't jump to conclusions. But the signs kept coming. Little cracks in the facade that I couldn't ignore. It was the way. Mark started guarding his phone like it was a secret treasure. Once, I casually glanced over his shoulder as he quickly hit a text. The look on his face, guilty and surprised, was enough to chill me to the bone at dinner one night. I noticed he was distracted, his mind miles away, scrolling through his phone under the table. When I asked what was so important, he smiled and said just some work stuff, but his voice was often rehearsed, too hollow. That same evening, I bumped into our neighbor, Mr. Jenkins, a sweet old man who always had a joke ready. He looked at me with a twinkle in his eye and said, "You look like you've been carrying the weight of the world lately, Mary." I laughed, trying to hide the knot in my throat. "You're right, Mr. Jenkins. Just life, you know." But the truth was heavier than I could admit. I confided in Karen during our weekly lunch, spilling every doubt and suspicion. She listened quietly, then said, "If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, sometimes you just have to trust your gut." Her words echoed in my mind as I started noticing even more odd behavior. One afternoon, while Mark was working in his study, I heard him whispering urgently into the phone. I wasn't supposed to hear it, but the words caught me off guard. "No, she can't find out. I'm handling everything." My heart pounded. Who was he talking to? What was he hiding? Determined to find out, I started paying closer attention to the small things, the receipts from unknown stores, late-night disappearances, and even a new email account I discovered on his laptop. It was as if I had become a detective in my own home, piecing together clues that no wife should ever have to uncover. But amidst the tension, life still had its moments of irony. One evening, I accidentally locked myself out on the porch while trying to sneak a peek at his phone. Mark caught me and burst out laughing. "Are you starting your own spy agency now?" I forced a smile, feeling foolish yet oddly relieved to share a laugh, even if it was at my own expense. These little moments of humor became my refuge, brief breaths of air in a suffocating storm. Still, the question lingered. Why was he hiding so much? What was he really after? Then came the day Karen called me in a panic. "Mary, you have to be careful. I heard from someone that Mark's been meeting with a woman named Lisa, someone connected to the family business." My stomach dropped. Lisa. That name was unfamiliar, but it sounded serious. Could this be the link to everything? The secret that explained the growing distance between us? I decided I couldn't wait any longer. I needed answers, no matter how painful they might be. So one morning, I followed Mark discreetly as he left the house. He drove to a nondescript office building downtown. I waited in the car, heart pounding, as he disappeared inside. I peeked through the window and saw him sitting across from a woman, blonde, confident, with a calculating smile. They spoke in low tones, exchanging papers and numbers. That was the moment the truth hit me like a freight train. Mark wasn't just hiding secrets, he was orchestrating something that threatened everything I had built. I sat back in my seat, tears stinging my eyes. The man I trusted was playing a game I never agreed to, but I wasn't ready to be a victim. As I drove home, my mind raced with questions, fears, and an unexpected resolve. I realized that discovering the truth was just the beginning. The real challenge was deciding what to do with it. Would I confront him head-on, or quietly gather evidence, preparing for the day I could finally expose the betrayal? Whatever happened next, I knew one thing for sure. My life was about to change forever. The tension in the house had become unbearable. Every glance, every word felt charged with unspoken truths. I knew I had to confront Mark. I needed answers, no matter how painful they might be. One evening, I sat him down in our living room, the air thick with anticipation. "Mark," I began, voice trembling but steady. "I know something's going on. I see the secrets, the lies. Please, just tell me the truth." He looked at me, eyes searching, a flicker of guilt crossing his face. Then, with a forced calm, he said, "Mary, you're overthinking. You have to trust me. I love you." But I wasn't convinced. Not anymore. Later that night, unable to sleep, I caught him on the phone again. This time, I decided to listen. His voice was low, urgent. "Yes, everything is in place. She suspects nothing yet. Keep it that way." My heart sank. The man who vowed to love me was plotting behind my back. Days passed, and the distance between us grew. I avoided eye contact, tried to act normal for the sake of appearances, but inside, I was breaking. One afternoon while I was cleaning the study, I found a hidden folder on his laptop, labeled Plans. With trembling hands, I opened it. Inside were documents, contracts, bank statements, even forged signatures. Everything pointed to one thing. Mark was planning to take control of my family's assets. I felt dizzy. How could the man I trusted so completely betray me like this? Later, at dinner, I tried to keep my composure. Mark sat across from me, pretending everything was fine. Then, out of nowhere, he cracked a joke about my obsession with checking his phone. I laughed, but it was a hollow sound. "Maybe I'm just trying to keep up with the magician," I said. "Always one step ahead." He smiled, but the warmth was gone. One night, I decided to confront him with what I found. I laid out the documents on the table, watching his face change from shock to anger. "Why, Mark? Why pretend to love me?" I asked, tears welling up. His response stunned me. Instead of denying, he said, "You don't understand. This isn't about you. It's about survival." I wanted to scream, to demand explanations, but I was numb then. He dropped a bombshell. "You think I'm the only one with secrets? You have your own past, Mary, things you've hidden." That night, he revealed details about my family history. I never wanted to face secrets, betrayals, scandals, long buried. It was like a knife twisting in my heart. For a moment, I wondered if we were just two broken souls trapped in a web of lies. The next day, I reached out to Karen, desperate for support. She listened as I poured out everything, then said, "This isn't just about love or money anymore. It's about truth. And sometimes, truth hurts." Despite the pain, I realized I couldn't back down. Not now. Mark's betrayal was deeper than I imagined. But so was my strength. If he thought I'd crumble, he was wrong. The fight for my life, my dignity, was only just beginning. After that tense confrontation, I realized there was no turning back. If I wanted to take back my life and my family's legacy, I needed a solid plan. It wasn't enough to suspect Mark anymore. I had to gather proof, concrete evidence that would expose his lies once and for all. I reached out to an attorney I trusted, a sharp and compassionate woman named Linda. When I told her my story, she looked at me with understanding eyes and said, "Mary, this won't be easy, but you have every right to know the truth, and we will fight for it." Having an expert by my side gave me a flicker of hope in the darkness. I also asked my dear friend Karen for help. She's the kind of person who's fiercely loyal, even if a bit clumsy. One time, while trying to snap a discreet photo of Mark meeting someone suspicious, she tripped over a flower pot and nearly blew our cover. We both laughed until tears ran down our faces. It was one of those rare moments of lightness amid chaos. Step by step, I started piecing together the puzzle. I found mysterious bank transfers, Late-night phone calls with a certain Thomas, a name I'd never heard before but who, as it turned out, was the family's asset manager. My heart would race every time I uncovered another connection. Between Mark and Thomas both clearly working behind my back, each discovery was like a dagger twisting deeper into my chest. But it also fueled my determination. I wasn't going to be fooled any longer. One afternoon, I surprised myself by calling Thomas directly. I played it casual, asking about some family matters, as if I had no clue. But from his cold, calculated tone, I sensed his true colors. He wasn't just a silent partner. He was a key player in the scheme, trying to mask my growing unease. I said firmly, "Mr. Thomas, I'm keeping a close eye on everything now. Nothing will slip by me." There was a pause. Then his voice turned stiff. "That would be wise." It was a small victory, but it told me I was already shaking their fragile plans. Karen and I devised a plan to catch Mark and Thomas in the act. She volunteered to stake out Thomas's office, camera and recorder in hand, ready to capture any suspicious meetings. Although she nearly got caught more than once, and had a hilarious moment when she mistook a delivery guy for Thomas's assistant. Whispering spy warnings to him, it was these little mishaps that kept me sane. In between the serious work, I kept a journal where I documented every lie Mark told me. His words, rehearsed and cold, became my ammunition. The more I collected, the more I felt in control again. To balance the weight on my heart, I took up yoga and spent time with old friends. One day, chatting with Karen, I joked, "If this detective work doesn't pan out, we could always open our own agency, the Fake Love Investigation Squad." We burst into laughter. The sound like a balm for my weary soul. But as we dug deeper, I uncovered something far worse than I expected. Mark wasn't acting alone. There was someone else, a family member, quietly supporting him. The betrayal cut even deeper. How could someone so close stand by and watch me suffer? Despite the pain, I had no time to wallow. I had to be smart, strategic, and strong. My plan was coming together piece by piece. Soon, Mark and his accomplices would have nowhere left to hide. The truth was coming, and I was ready to face it. Head dash on. This wasn't just about reclaiming my money or my home. It was about standing up for myself and for anyone who's ever been deceived by someone they loved. After weeks of careful planning and secret investigations, the moment I had dreaded and hoped for finally arrived, the day to confront Mark with the truth. I gathered every piece of evidence, photos, documents, recordings, and the list of lies he had told. My hands trembled as I prepared for what I knew would be the hardest conversation of my life. I invited him to the dining room, the place where so many memories were made, now heavy with tension. Mark sat down, trying to maintain his usual calm demeanor, but I could see the flicker of nervousness in his eyes. "Mark," I said, voice steady despite the storm inside me, "I know everything." For a moment, silence filled the room. Then, like a dam breaking, the truth poured out. Mark confessed, revealing the extent of his deception, how he pretended to love me only to gain control over my family's fortune. The lies, the schemes, the secret meetings, it was all laid bare. But then came the twist I never saw coming. He wasn't acting alone. Someone close to me, someone I trusted with my life, had been helping him all along. The shock hit me harder than anything else. Betrayal wasn't just in my marriage. It was in my family. Tears streamed down my face as the pieces fell into place. The unexplained phone calls, the sudden disappearances of important documents. I had been living in a web of deceit spun by the people I loved most. Yet amid the heartbreak, I found a strange strength. The truth, painful as it was, set me free. With my lawyer's support, I took swift action. Legal steps were taken to freeze assets, revoke powers of attorney, and expose the conspirators. The courtroom became a stage where my life's story unfolded, captivating everyone with its twists and raw emotion. And then, something unexpected happened. Mark's accomplice, a family member who had stayed silent, came forward, remorseful, and willing to testify against him. Their confession was both a betrayal and a relief. It showed me that even in the darkest moments, redemption is possible. Throughout the ordeal, friends like Karen stood by me, offering laughter, comfort, and unwavering support. There was a moment when Karen, trying to lighten the mood during a particularly tense court recess, joked, "Maybe next time you should marry a detective." We laughed together, the sound a reminder that life goes on, even after the storm. In the end, justice was served. Mark faced consequences for his actions, and I reclaimed not only my property but my peace of mind. More importantly, I learned who I truly am, a woman strong enough to face betrayal, wise enough to seek the truth, and brave enough to start over. This story isn't just mine. It's for anyone who has ever felt the sting of betrayal, the ache of lost trust, and the hope for a new beginning. Because no matter how deep the wounds, the heart has an incredible power to heal and rise again. PHGN6, Fun Kang, quite. Lie at 800T, the moment the truth was out in the open. I thought the hardest part was over. But betrayal has a way of digging its claws even deeper. Mark wasn't ready to give up quietly. Instead, he launched a fierce counterattack, determined to turn the tables and silence me once and for all. It started with subtle threats disguised as concerned warnings. He hinted that exposing him would ruin my reputation, tear the family apart, and leave me with nothing. His words were like icy needles, but I refused to be intimidated. I leaned on Linda, my lawyer, who had become my rock. "Mary, he's playing dirty," she warned. "We need to be smarter, stronger. This fight isn't just legal, it's personal." Her words steeled my resolve. Mark used every trick in the book: false accusations, attempts to discredit me, even trying to sway mutual friends to his side. But the more he fought, the more I saw through the mask of the man I once loved. One afternoon, as I sat in a quiet cafe, a stranger approached and handed me an envelope. Inside were documents proving Mark's attempts to forge signatures and manipulate financial records. I almost laughed at the absurdity. Who did he think he was fooling? But instead, I smiled coldly. "Game on," I whispered. With Karen's help, we compiled the new evidence, tightening the noose around Mark's schemes. Our teamwork was relentless: phone calls, meetings, late-night strategy sessions. Karen, ever the comic relief, would sometimes burst into song to break the tension, turning our war room into a makeshift concert hall. Despite the chaos, I found moments of peace in unexpected places. One evening, walking through the garden, I caught myself humming an old tune my mother used to sing. It reminded me that no matter how dark the night, dawn always comes. Mark's attacks escalated, but so did my courage. I refused to be a victim. I faced every challenge head-on with fierce determination. The courtroom battles were brutal. Mark's lawyers threw everything they had at me, questioning my character and motives. But Linda was prepared. Her sharp questions and unwavering confidence turned the tide, exposing Mark's lies one by one. Then came the turning point. During a hearing, a key witnessee, longtime employee, loyal to me, testified about Mark's deception. The room fell silent as the evidence piled up, undeniable and crushing. Mark's smirk faded. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, eager for the story. Suddenly, my private nightmare became public, a cautionary tale about greed, betrayal, and resilience. But through it all, I held my head high, because I wasn't just fighting for my inheritance, I was fighting for my dignity, my future, and my truth. In the end, Mark's plans unraveled completely. He faced legal consequences, and his grip on my family's legacy was broken. I stood victorious, but more importantly, stronger than ever. The battle had tested me in ways I never imagined. It taught me that even when the people closest to you betray you, you can still find the strength to rise, reclaim your life, and rebuild. And that, more than anything, is the true victory. The moment the truth was out in the open, I thought the hardest part was over. But betrayal has a way of digging its claws even deeper. Mark wasn't ready to give up quietly. Instead, he launched a fierce counterattack, determined to turn the tables and silence me once and for all. It started with subtle threats disguised as concerned warnings. He hinted that exposing him would ruin my reputation, tear the family apart, and leave me with nothing. His words were like icy needles, but I refused to be intimidated. I leaned on Linda, my lawyer, who had become my rock. "Mary, he's playing dirty," she warned. "We need to be smarter, stronger. This fight isn't just legal, it's personal." Her words steeled my resolve. Mark used every trick in the book: false accusations, attempts to discredit me, even trying to sway mutual friends to his side. But the more he fought, the more I saw through the mask of the man I once loved. One afternoon, as I sat in a quiet cafe, a stranger approached and handed me an envelope. Inside were documents proving Mark's attempts to forge signatures and manipulate financial records. I almost laughed at the absurdity. Who did he think he was fooling? But instead, I smiled coldly. "Game on," I whispered. With Karen's help, we compiled the new evidence, tightening the noose around Mark's schemes. Our teamwork was relentless: phone calls, meetings, late-night strategy sessions. Karen, ever the comic relief, would sometimes burst into song to break the tension, turning our war room into a makeshift concert hall. Despite the chaos, I found moments of peace in unexpected places. One evening, walking through the garden, I caught myself humming an old tune my mother used to sing. It reminded me that no matter how dark the night, dawn always comes. Mark's attacks escalated, but so did my courage. I refused to be a victim. I faced every challenge head-on with fierce determination. The courtroom battles were brutal. Mark's lawyers threw everything they had at me, questioning my character and motives. But Linda was prepared. Her sharp questions and unwavering confidence turned the tide, exposing Mark's lies one by one. Then came the turning point. During a hearing, a key witness, a longtime employee loyal to me, testified about Mark's deception. The room fell silent as the evidence piled up, undeniable and crushing. Mark's smirk faded. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, eager for the story. Suddenly, my private nightmare became public, a cautionary tale about greed, betrayal, and resilience. But through it all, I held my head high. Because I wasn't just fighting for my inheritance, I was fighting for my dignity, my future, and my truth. In the end, Mark's plans unraveled completely. He faced legal consequences, and his grip on my family's legacy was broken. I stood victorious, but more importantly, stronger than ever. The battle had tested me in ways I never imagined. It taught me that even when the people closest to you betray you, you can still find the strength to rise, reclaim your life, and rebuild. And that, more than anything, is the true victory. The battle was over, but the scars remained. Even though Mark had been held accountable, the wounds he left behind were deep and raw. I found myself walking through a strange new world, one where trust was fragile, and every shadow brought back memories of betrayal. The house felt emptier, the rooms echoing with silence. Friends and family offered support, but nothing could fill the void left by deception from someone I loved so deeply. Some days I struggled just to get out of bed. The weight of what happened pressed down on me like a heavy fog. I questioned everything: my judgment, my worth, even my ability to love again. But healing, as I slowly learned, is not a straight path. It came in small moments: a morning cup of coffee in the garden, a heartfelt phone call from Karen, a quiet walk in the neighborhood. These simple acts became lifelines, reminders that life still held beauty beyond the pain. One afternoon, I attended a support group for people who had experienced betrayal. Hearing others' stories made me feel less alone and even brought a few tears of relief. We laughed over shared frustrations, like the absurdity of trying to move on while your ex's new lies still swirl in your mind. Karen, ever my steady companion, encouraged me to take up painting. "It's cheaper than therapy," she joked. But it worked. The colors and brushstrokes gave voice to emotions I couldn't put into words. Slowly, I found strength in vulnerability. I started trusting myself again, learning to set boundaries and protect my heart. Of course, there were setbacks. Some nights the past would flood back in vivid nightmares. But each morning I chose to rise, reminding myself that survival was victory in itself. A turning point came when I reconnected with old friends and family members who had been distant during the turmoil. Their love was genuine and healing and helped me rebuild the foundation of trust I thought was lost forever. I also discovered new passions: volunteering at a local community center, mentoring women who faced similar challenges. Helping others gave my life renewed purpose and joy. One day, Karen and I laughed over a silly incident where I accidentally locked myself out of the house again. "Maybe you should install one of those fancy keyless locks," she teased. "Or just give me a spare key." Her humor reminded me that life, even after heartbreak, could be light and full of laughter. Looking back, I realized that the greatest gift from this painful journey was self-discovery. I was no longer defined by Mark's betrayal, but by my resilience and courage. The future felt uncertain but hopeful, and as I stood on the porch one sunny morning, watching the world wake up around me, I smiled. Because, despite everything, I had found my way back to myself. PHGN8. Twist Kui VKT THCM Bob Idwin. Just when I thought the worst was behind me, life threw one last curveball. The courtroom drama, the betrayals, the heartbreak, it all felt like a chapter closing. But the truth has a way of lingering in the shadows, waiting to resurface when you least expect it. One afternoon, I received an unexpected visitor, a private investigator I had never met. He handed me an envelope with a solemn expression. Inside were photographs and documents that revealed something I could never have imagined. Mark's deception was only part of the story. The real shock? Someone else had been manipulating the situation all along, a figure hidden in the background, pulling strings behind the scenes. The photos showed secret meetings between that mysterious figure and Mark's accomplice. Planning? Moves that could have destroyed me entirely. I sat down, heart pounding, trying to process the revelation. Who could it be? Someone I trusted. Someone I never suspected. The pieces started to fall into place. Old family secrets, hidden agendas, whispers I'd brushed off as nonsense. It was clear that this battle wasn't just between Mark and Emmett, was part of a larger game. I realized that while I had won one fight, the war was far from over. But this time I was ready with renewed determination. I knew I had to dig deeper. Uncover the full truth, not just for myself, but for the sake of everyone who might be caught in this web. Yet, even as the path ahead seemed daunting, I found solace in the fact that I was no longer alone. Friends like Karen stood firmly by my side, reminding me that together we could face whatever came next. As I closed the envelope, a mixture of fear and hope washed over me. The future was uncertain, the challenges still looming, but I had learned one thing for sure. No matter how dark the night, the dawn always comes, and I was ready to meet it head-on. So, this isn't the end. It's just another beginning. Just when I thought the worst was behind me, life threw one last curveball. The courtroom drama, the betrayals, the heartbreak, it all felt like a chapter closing. But the truth has a way of lingering in the shadows, waiting to resurface when you least expect it. One afternoon, I received an unexpected visitor, private investigator I had never met. He handed me an envelope with a solemn expression. Inside were photographs and documents that revealed something I could never have imagined. Mark's deception was only part of the story. The real shock, someone else had been manipulating the situation all along, a figure hidden in the background, pulling strings behind the scenes. The photos showed secret meetings between that mysterious figure and Mark's accomplice, planning moves that could have destroyed me entirely. I sat down, heart pounding, trying to process the revelation. Who could it be? Someone I trusted, someone I never suspected. The pieces started to fall into place. Old family secrets, hidden agendas, whispers I'd brushed off as nonsense. It was clear that this battle wasn't just between Mark and Emmett, was part of a larger game. I realized that while I had won one fight, the war was far from over. But this time I was ready. With renewed determination, I knew I had to dig deeper, uncover the full truth, not just for myself, but for the sake of everyone who might be caught in this web. Yet, even as the path ahead seemed daunting, I found solace in the fact that I was no longer alone. Friends like Karen stood firmly by my side, reminding me that together we could face whatever came next. As I closed the envelope, a mixture of fear and hope washed over me. The future was uncertain, the challenges still looming, but I had learned one thing for sure. No matter how dark the night, the dawn always comes, and I was ready to meet it head-on. So, this isn't the end. It's just another beginning. Thank you for joining me on this emotional journey of trust, betrayal, and resilience. As a specialist in family dynamics and emotional well-being, I want to highlight that stories like this are far more common than we think. They remind us how complex relationships can be, especially when love and money intertwine. What stands out is the courage it takes to face harsh truths and reclaim one's life. Healing isn't linear. It's a process filled with ups and downs. Yet it is possible to emerge stronger, wiser, and more in control of your future. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever experienced a betrayal that changed your life? How did you find your way forward? Please share your stories or advice in the comments below. Your voice matters and could inspire someone going through a similar struggle. If you find value in this story and want to explore more real-life journeys filled with powerful lessons and unexpected twists, please consider subscribing to our channel. We're here to bring you authentic stories that resonate and uplift, with content tailored for our wonderful audience over 50. Remember, you're not alone on this path. Together we can find strength and hope. Stay tuned for more videos, and thank you for being part of our community.